So, so I don't know if I necessarily agree with what you said about Kilpatrick saying that the sit-ins had quote like they weren't for any reason. Because I think that kind of misses why he brings up the fact that, when he goes into, well, sitting at a lunch counter doesn't do anything about voting rights. I think rather he's trying to deflect the issue, because he knows that the sit-ins are kind of the first step towards getting to voting rights. And as we said, he is a segregationalist. He's much more on the conservative side. So he'd definitely be a little bit opposed to that kind of stuff. And the only reason why someone with his sort of belief system would bring up something of that, uh, well, you're focusing on the wrong thing, is because he's trying to shift the narrative. I don't think it was necessarily an attempt just to say that they're not doing it for any reason. I think he's trying to say that they're trying to be unruly and disobedient, and they're trying to upset, decades of tradition, and they just want to do this because they can. Um, and discrediting them and the reason for doing it, I think, is an attempt to try and paint them in a very negative light as disorganized or weak or not, smart enough to understand what their real issue is. Um, and certainly, I think the problem is that this was really because we're talking about a lot of college students here. And I'm not saying that college students can't make great political change, because they can make great political change. But they found the way that they could best approach things. And it kind of plays into this whole idea of that's played a lot in politics. If you take an inch from me, then, or if I give an inch to you, you're going to take a mile from me. Um, so I think what he's trying to do is trying to get rid of that small step and trying to say, well, they're doing something so small and it's not going to matter. And, if they tried to aim to something big, maybe would there be real change? Well, first of all, why would a conservative, or not a conservative, why would a segregationalist say something along those lines? Because then, I don't think he necessarily brings up a wrong point, because if the black community had the resources at the time to start fighting for those voting rights at the early stages of the civil rights movement, um, they would have gone after that first. But it's sort of that you need to work your way up. So I don't know if he's necessarily saying it because they didn't have any reason to. I think he's trying to say it in order to try and discredit the movement and their objectives. And obviously what we saw, I think if they would have gone after something big at the point they were at that point, it would have been difficult. And they probably wouldn't have moved that much. And some can argue that those changes still haven't taken full effect. So by slowly working on the small stuff first, it sort of builds up to those bigger and bigger things as it makes it easier to tackle. You wouldn't just attack, I'll take football for example, because I used to play football. If there's a really big running back running down the field, you wouldn't just try and attack the upper body or the whole, or just his shoulders or his arms or whatever, because that won't work. You have to take down the legs. You have to take down the little bit of foundations, a little bit of smaller things before attacking the bigger subjects. So that's what I have to say about that.